Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josey. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josey. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josey, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is how to find off-market deals like a pro. Some of the best real estate opportunities never hit the MLS. Off-market deals can mean less competition, better prices, and more creative terms, but you have to know where to look. Want to uncover those hidden gems? Here are 5 ways to find off-market deals like a pro. Number 1, work your network. Let everyone know you're looking for deals, family, friends, agents, contractors, and even fellow investors. Word of mouth is powerful, and your next lead could come from an unexpected conversation. Number 2, drive for dollars. Hit the streets and look for properties with signs of distress, overgrown lawns, peeling paint, or piled up mail. Jot down the addresses and reach out to the owners directly. Number 3, master direct mail. Send targeted letters or postcards to absentee owners, landlords, or owners of vacant properties. Consistency is key, and follow up multiple times for the best results. Number 4, leverage social media and online groups. Join local real estate Facebook groups, forums, and online communities. Post about what you're looking for and connect with wholesalers or motivated sellers who might have leads. Number 5, build relationships with key professionals. Title reps, probate attorneys, and even mail carriers can be incredible sources of off-market deals. Treat these connections well. They often hear about opportunities before anyone else. So RAIN Nation, remember, off-market deals don't just fall into your lap. You have to be proactive, persistent, and creative. Stay connected, stay curious, and keep leveling up your badassery. That's how you build a real estate business that lasts. Now on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. Today's guest is Kenny Bedwell, a seasoned real estate investor and entrepreneur known for helping high-income professionals find and acquire short-term rentals with strong cash flow. With over 8 years of experience and a background as a data analyst at Citibank, Kenny brings a sharp analytical approach to uncovering high-performing deals. He's guided more than 300 clients to impressive returns and hosts Cash Flow Positive, a top-ranked podcast for business and entrepreneurship. Through his podcast, coaching, and speaking engagements, Kenny shares strategies for leveraging data and optimizing property performance. It's my pleasure to have him on the show, so welcome, Kenny Bedwell.
Thank you. First off, I love all the sound effects and everything. I feel like this is truly badassery. So this is exciting. I'm like, yeah, I'm rocking out at the beginning. And all the intro and everything. And so, yes, I'm pumped up to be here.
Well, so. I am thrilled. I just found out you are my neighbor. I can't believe it. We're going for drinks after the show. I just feel like you wait. I will have you convinced we'll be drinking within an hour after the show. I'm just kidding.
That's where the real recording podcast happens.
Absolutely. Well, you are new to the area, but you came down from New York. By the way, everyone, we're in Raleigh, North Carolina. But Kenny, what first got you into real estate investing?
Yeah, so I was working a corporate 9 to 5 job at Citibank, and I wanted to grow some passive income through real estate investing, just start other investments. I'm a big believer in diversification. When I was at Citibank, I worked in the equities market, and we invest in stocks and bonds and ETF mutual fund, all that good stuff, Wall Street. And I wanted to, with the volatility of Wall Street and losses and gains, and it was just too much volatility for me to just say all my eggs in that basket. Let me master this. I want something safe. I want an asset, a hard asset. And unlike my dad, who's a doomsdayer, and he actually lives out in Asheville up on a mountain, he's got like 30 acres and owns a bunch of gold. He's like hard assets. I'm like, hey, you know what? The next best thing is real estate. And that's what I want to do. So in 2017, I bought my first duplex and lived in one half, convinced my wife that we should do this, live in one half and rent out the other half and so we wanted to do it on, as a long-term rental. And that was the original plan until I met this guy. And he was telling me about how he had an apartment that he was renting on Airbnb and how much money it was making. He was saying it was making about 2 to 3 times what a long-term rental can make. And, at that time, and this is in Buffalo, New York, you could probably get for our little duplex, that one unit, probably get about $600 or $700 a month. So I was like, you know what? We got nothing to lose. Let's throw it up. It's 2017. Let's throw it up on Airbnb. Let's see what happens. We'll furnish it with some IKEA furniture, or some stuff that we can buy on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist. I still use that. I actually bought my house from Craigslist. And in fact, that's a great way to find houses too. I know you're giving 5 tips. Bonus tip, Craigslist. I bought a duplex on Craigslist.
My first flip I found off Craigslist.
There we go. It's great. I mean, that's a great first sell by owner place. So don't sleep on Craigslist, y'all. So anyway, we throw it up on Airbnb, and I kid you not, in the first year, we were making on average $3,000 a month on Airbnb. Ooh. And remember, $700 rent, long-term rental. Hey, we're making $3,000 a month. I'm like, we got to do this again. So we go down to downtown Buffalo, a little bit better location where, all the happenings are happening. And we buy another duplex, and we would get a triplex. And then I run out of money and I start to manage people's properties and really try to grow from there. And so it was kind of this happenstance, but also this desire to grow a portfolio and then once you find success, it's like, I need to double down on this. And I tell people all the time, look, I'm very conservative. I run my numbers, and that's really important for me. I always kind of have an exit plan. But at the same time too, when you find something that's working, keep milking it.
Yes.
And that's kind of how I've gotten in and grown my portfolio to what it is today.
So I'm curious, because you were working for Citibank, how long did it take for you to replace that income with real estate?
I would say so, dollar for dollar, it was probably about 3 years.
Okay.
With the short-term rentals, but I quit. So I quit in 21, the end of 21, which was 4 years. And I was making, at that point, I was starting to make almost 2 times what I was making at Citibank.
That is so nice. So listeners, are you listening? Do not quit your job before you have that income coming in to replace that, because that's huge. A lot of people will jump into this industry thinking, oh, it's get rich quick. Nope, not going to happen.
It is not. And that's a really good point too. A lot of people don't talk about that. It's not hey, when I'm generating, and we'll use cash flow here, net income, I'm generating, at the time I was making about 120 at Citibank. It was oh, cool. You're making 120 in real estate, you can quit your job. But the reality is, once you quit, you now have to pay for benefits.
Yes.
You got to pay for your health care. And you got to have an emergency fund, especially with the real estate side. Big expenses pop up and things you're unexpecting, and just different things like that. And so it's not really a dollar for dollar is when you should quit. It's kind of hey, do a little bit more than that. And when you're comfortable, and some people can, live below their means of what they were currently doing, and then gives them. But the most important thing I learned though, is I could have quit a little bit sooner, because I realized that once I quit, after I quit, I was like, man, I have so much more time to dedicate towards this. And that's when the explosion happened of growth and scale. So
huge. So, one of your areas of expertise is finding short-term rental deals that net 50 to 100,000 annually. So, what is your process? I've been dying to ask this question. What is your process for finding short-term rentals that consistently cash flow regardless of the market?
How much time do we have? I'm just kidding.
I have all day. I mean, I'm having drinks with you in an hour, so we can keep.
Yeah,
we can
okay.
finish
We
this
got
at the
we
bar.
got a date in an hour. All right. So yes, it's really funny. No, I will speak. I go up on stage. This is the topic. That is the question that I get asked all the time. Besides, what market should I invest into? And I literally give like seminars and workshops and stuff like for a whole hour and a half even on this topic. So, but I'll summarize it. So. For our listeners, and we can maybe dive in there, whatever you want, wherever we go. So the biggest thing for me starting out on knowing where to invest and find these opportunities is understanding the first thing is we have to understand our goals. So number one, and this is more of a mindset thing, and it's something you listeners have probably heard before, is like, why are you investing in short-term rentals? Like, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to replace a job? Are you trying to build, supplementary income, build generational wealth, provide something for your friend? It's really interesting. Everyone has a reason, and it's not just to make money.
Right.
That's the important part. If you're doing this to make money, well, we're all trying to make money, but it's for like another purpose. And you won't be successful if you're chasing dollars for chasing dollars. You need to be chasing a goal, something within, a purpose. Okay, that also helps keep you motivated through the ups and downs. And then the second thing with the goal is we need to understand, number one, what it takes to invest into a short-term rental. And what I mean by that is a common mistake investors make in this space is they go, I have $100,000 to invest. I'm going to go to a lender, and a lender says, you have $100,000 to invest. Therefore, I can give you, let's say a 20% down loan on a house. You can afford up to $500,000. Okay. Well, now they have enough for their down payment, but they have no money left over for furnishings,
Right.
amenities, design, and all this. And the short-term rental space has gotten very, very, very competitive. And so the concept that I always teach people at the beginning that a lot of people struggle with is we have to be willing to invest in short-term rental properties. We have to. I tell people all the time, I use a rule of thumb. I call it the 20% rule. I invest at least 20% of the purchase price into the property, and that doesn't include the down payment. So let's see some recent examples. Now, look, I buy properties at all different price points. Okay, I have a property I bought. This was a few years ago though, but I bought for $350,000. Okay, that property grosses over $140,000 a year. I netted $80K on that property.
Woo.
Okay, I invested about $110,000 plus a down payment into that property. $350K though. It's appreciated, and I'm always like, I'm trying to force appreciation too. It's not just throwing money into amenities like, oh, I bought some pretty chairs, and a hot tub, and I want to improve the property, add bedrooms, add bathrooms, and also add the pretty chairs. So I start there. But the other thing too is understanding this 20% rule. If you invest in the property, you will make more money. People are like naturally cheap. I mean, it's fear, right? Fear of making a mistake.
Did you just say naturally cheap?
Yeah, seriously, it's true. Like people, like for the most part, investors are like, okay, I've got $100,000, and if I buy a bigger property, I now have a bigger asset, and psychologically, it's a better play. But the reality is, when you run the numbers, you have nothing left over to invest into the property, and it's not going to be a top producing property. So, and that's the thing, and then you'll struggle. It takes time and effort and energy to run a short-term rental. And if you have a crappy property that's not producing, you have to spend more time trying to worry about pricing and all these other elements that are involved in this space. And it just doesn't make sense. And so start with your goal in mind of what you can actually afford based on 5 key things: your budget, purchase price budget, your closing costs, any sort of renovations or updates, design decor, and amenities. Those 5 things determine what we can afford. Okay. Now that you have that, it'll help you understand what purchase prices you should be looking at. And then you move into, okay, now that I know what I can afford, now I can start looking for markets of the purchase prices I can afford. So for example, sure, I can afford, if I had $100,000, I could buy a condo. And let me pick a market. We're in Raleigh, so like Wilmington. I could go into, Wilmington Beach, and I could buy a condo, a one-bedroom condo, and get the down payment and everything. But then I have no money left over to stand out and differentiate. And so just because I can afford to be in that market doesn't mean I should be in that market.
Right.
Maybe with that 100,000, I need to be looking maybe Western North Carolina, like Bryson City, where the purchase prices are 300 to 500,000. And so understanding our budget leads right into knowing where we should actually invest, what's actually going to make sense for us. And there are over 12,000 vacation rental markets across the entire United States. And so understanding where to invest is the next biggest part that people struggle with. Is they're like, well, I only know these places. Here's the number one nugget I give to people when market finding. The best markets are all within 1 to 2 hour driving distance of a major city.
Yep.
Or two major cities. They also have at least 1 to 2 major traffic drivers. Traffic drivers are reasons why people are going there. Think national parks, think ski resorts, or other
Venues,
types of activities and
colleges.
things.
Yep.
Exactly. Why are people going to these places? And then finally, the regulations. It's a vacation market. They might have some sort of regulations there, but they're not banning short-term rentals. They're not anti-short-term rentals. They rely on economic value from short-term rentals and tourism. And so I'll invest in states I invest in New York. I have properties in New York. I have short-term rentals in New York that have a lot of regulations, but they're in vacation-friendly markets. And that regulation protects me from competition, and it fits in with protecting the community as well. And I'm all for that. And so those three things. So driving distance of major cities, which everybody, wherever your listeners are, you're in some sort of metropolitan area, or even if you're in the countryside, you're somewhat near a metropolitan area, you have a place that you and a significant other, or you by yourself, would go and just get away to. There's a place.
Yep.
Everybody's got it. When I was in, I'll use Buffalo. When I was in Buffalo, everybody there, driving distance, Erie, PA, which is on one of the lakes there, Great Lakes, Erie Lake, the Finger Lakes in New York, Allegheny State Park. These are places, if you don't know the area, you've never heard of before, but the locals know the area. That's where they'll vacation to, driving distance, get away for the weekend. Those are fantastic markets to check out, and very affordable markets too. And they have traffic drivers there, meaning activities and things for people to do while they're there and enjoy. And then finally, the regulations are friendly. So knowing those three things helps me know, okay, these are potential markets that I can invest in that are going to be investor friendly for what I'm trying to do.
Wow, that is a lot to take in, and
That's
nuggets.
steps 1 and 2. I still have 3 more, but I wanted to pause and take a breather. And
well, I'll add one. I choose my short-term rentals if they're near a brewery or a winery. Those are very important because, just to have a destination. Yes, you want to go to escape, but then you also want to at least go out, visit the area. So that is important for me. That's
interesting. I have two that are near. One is near wineries. It's in the Finger Lakes in New York. It's like 5 minutes from like 10 wineries. And then my Kentucky house, which we can talk about, that one is on the Bourbon Trail. So it's near bourbon distilleries. Oh, nice. And so that one's a really, really cool one. It's a 9-bed, 7-bath, 9,600 square feet. We bought it for $1 million. And this year it will gross about $400,000. We'll net about $175K on it.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, keep going. What's number 3?
So, okay. All right. We're going through them all. I love it. So number 3 are our buy boxes. So knowing where we should invest in the markets. So once we've identified, hey, I can, this is a good place for me to invest in, we need to know where to invest in that market. So like you mentioned, like near a brewery.
Let's back up a second though. If we're sitting in Raleigh, North Carolina, what tool am I using to find areas that we know are successful for short-term rentals?
Okay. Yes. So you need a tool that looks at the key metric that tells us performance of properties, which is revenue. You need a tool that tells you the revenue performance of properties in the market. So there's several data tools out there. So there's AirDNA, which is kind of like the standard everyone's heard
Right.
about. And this is where I'm plugging myself for a second, if that's okay. My company, STR Insights, we also have a data tool. It's free that you can access, strinsights.com. You plug in an address of a market, and it will literally tell you the revenue in a radius of all the properties in that area. It's free, 100%. You don't even need an account. And so, but the point is, you will see, like for Raleigh, for example, certain parts of Raleigh perform better than others
Correct.
because maybe they're near, like, for example, downtown or near NC State. These are all desirable areas because of the traffic drivers. And so it's really important. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that there can't be multiple locations that are doing well or multiple neighborhoods if we're talking about an urban market. But we do need to understand where to invest and where not to invest because it's all about revenue and purchase price, right? Because that's your expenses and then your revenue is what you're bringing in. So where can I maximize revenue and essentially minimize purchase price at the same time? That's the delicate balance. For example, and the reason why I say that is because you can go to a beach market and you think, well, why are people going to the beach? To be on the beach. So I should buy a beachfront property. But those properties are $2 million. They're not making any money. They're not making enough money to cover the debt service. So it doesn't make sense to buy on the beach. It makes sense to buy walking distance to the beach in a lot of markets. So it's understanding, looking at revenue and then looking at purchase prices on Zillow, Redfin, MLS to understand like, okay, cool, this area makes a lot of money, but they also cost X.
Right.
Is it worth it?
Okay. By the way, I have a beach condo on the beach and I only paid $400,000 for it. So
there you go.
Yes,
Nice.
it is in Curie Beach, by the way. So you'll have to go check it out sometime. Okay. All right, let's get into picking the location and going back to AirDNA because a lot of people, and now we have strinsights.com to check out as well. But when people go there, my question is like Orlando. I'm a graduate of University of Central Florida. Go Knights. But Orlando is completely saturated. Yes, you can make a buck there, but the competition is so strong. And another one is like Scottsdale, Arizona. And all these places, you have places in Scottsdale, don't you?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm just smiling because you're 100% correct. And when you said you could make a buck there, I don't know if you could make a buck there anyway, but yeah, especially Orlando, that market is the definition of saturated.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
But I mean, a lot of people do that. And I feel like that's one of the biggest mistakes is they think, oh, I'll go here because it makes the data is showing that you can make this much. And what is the term? I told you I'm coming off of an illness here. The nights per month, occupancy.
Oh, average daily rate or ADR.
Occupancy is what I was trying to say.
Occupancy. Yeah.
But high occupancy in Orlando, places like that. But then they get there, they buy, and then they fail immediately because of the competition. So for me, Kenny, just personally, like I said, I like breweries, but it's also a place I want to go visit to escape. And you were kind of painting that picture earlier in the conversation. So where are some great markets that, should you go where everybody's going or should you pick the kind of off the beaten path?
No. So it goes back to the three things when I talk about markets. Drive-in markets perform better than fly-in markets. So you named two really good fly-in markets. Orlando, people fly into Orlando to go to Disney World, and people fly into Scottsdale to go to bachelorette parties or whatever the party.
Oh, in Nashville.
Pretty much
Nashville,
that's another one too. Miami's another one. Mm-hmm. Big cities like there's a few. There are some vacation markets that we classify as fly-in. A lot of them are. I was going to say like some of the ski markets out west, like the really big popular ones that those are fly-in ones. People fly in from all across the country. So it depends on. So obviously, why do we want to avoid those ones? Because they're very competitive. Everybody knows about them, and they're super expensive.
Yes.
And then also too, one thing, like I'll use Orlando as a perfect example. You will never be the best property in that market. You'll never be in the best location. You'll never beat the resorts. My family, we actually go to Orlando I've got 2 daughters, 4 and 2 years old. We go to Disney World every single year in January. And we used to stay at Airbnbs because, I own Airbnbs, so I should stay in Airbnbs. But the traffic was horrendous to get to Disney World. And we just realized, stay on site.
Yep.
Go stay at one of the resorts at Disney World. And sure, it's not an Airbnb. I don't get all these like cool amenities, but like freaking 5 minutes on the train and you're at Disney World. And it's like, that's number one. That's the ideal spot to be. An Airbnb can never top that. And so when we're looking for short-term rentals, we need to set ourselves up for success, not just buying in places that are, where everybody else is running to. And there's thousands of other investors. We need to be very smart. I call it chasing the herd. We don't need to chase the herd. We need to be smart on where we invest. 1 to 2 hour driving distance from major cities. What was the other? I can't remember traffic drivers, at least 2 traffic drivers and regulation. Those are the best markets. Pick a major city, 1 to 2 hours outside of it, whatever tourist attractions are around there. That's going to be those are typically the best spots. National parks are a good example of that. Most national parks actually are really great vacation rental markets as well. So that's where the best returns are, in my opinion, if you're looking for returns. I do think there's a lifestyle component too. Like you mentioned, you have that condo on the beach. I'm sure there's some sort of reason why you bought there and from I like to go there and escape kind of thing. I think that's great. But keep in mind that there's logical and emotional decisions. Mm-hmm. And as we make emotional decisions, we start to sacrifice some of the ROI or the numbers we can potentially get in the short-term rental space. And so it's a fine balance, but that's why it goes all the way back to your goals. Why are you doing this? Why are you buying a short-term rental? What's the purpose of this? And if you nail down those things first, literally write them down, you'll have a very clear picture and understanding of what direction you need to take. So.
Okay. Well, real quick, what was 4 and 5 again?
So number 3 is narrowing down
the location,
the markets.
Yes.
Number 4 is understanding how to evaluate revenue in those markets. And then number 5 is understanding what amenities and features you need to add to the property.
That's what I want to get to. So amenities, because there is a lot that you can add to a regular short-term rental. You can have beach bikes, you can have beach equipment, things that people can rent, upgrades, and you can have groceries delivered, all this fun stuff. But I want you to tell the audience what your favorite amenities are, what to look for, what is going to help when choosing a short-term rental.
Yeah, I make this joke all the time because I say this term all the time. I say it depends. I tell people all the time I should be the sponsor of the diaper brand Depends, because I say, well, it depends. It depends on your guest avatar. It depends on so guest avatars, who is coming to that market and why they're coming to the market. Let's look at some examples. So let's look at I own short-term rentals in New York, North Carolina, Kentucky, Texas, Arizona, and I have a hotel in New Orleans. All of these properties, some have some of the same amenities, but most of them have something different. And so let's start with Kentucky. So in Kentucky, that property is on the Bourbon Trail. So who is coming to that market? Is it families with kids?
No.
Some, but not really. They're not coming there to go drink at the distilleries. So we know that it's older groups, people in their 40s and 50s. Okay. So we know that means that most of our amenities should be targeted towards them. For example, this place sleeps 28 people. We're like, well, if we got a group of 28 people there, older people, we have one hot tub, which everybody has a hot tub, but hot tubs, maybe 7, 8 can fit in there at a time. That's not going to work. Everyone's going to want to be, so we have 2 hot tubs next to each other. Okay. We have a theater room. We have a yoga studio. We have a gym. We have a golf simulator with, like pool and we have a little putt-putt that's bourbon themed and a chipping green. And frisbee golf, things that sure families could enjoy, but the design, the decor, it's moodier colors. There's a cigar lounge. There's an indoor sauna. There's all these like little things that are more geared towards older people. And it really attracts them. We're like the number one place for groups, that specific guest avatar, because it screams, we're perfect for your group. We're perfect for your stay. Another thing I really liked about that property, this is the 9-bedroom, 7 bath, is it has 7 bathrooms. Most of the properties that are 9 bedrooms listed on Airbnb have 5, 6 bathrooms, but this place has 7. And when you're thinking about it, older groups, they're going to want to they're going to want their own bedroom and their own bathroom. So the more bathrooms, the merrier. It works perfectly for them. Whereas our other property in Texas, it's in Fort Worth, Texas. We're somewhat near the stadium, the Dallas Cowboys stadium, and the stuff going on downtown in Fort Worth. That property is a 7-bedroom, 5-bath, and it's targeted towards families. It's called Cowboys or Sports and Stadiums or something like that. But what we did in it, it's got a pool, it's got a pickleball court, it's a heated and chilled pool. It's got a massive play set that's really cool. It's got a really cool fire pit. And then we did a really, really cool, we took a 2-car garage and converted it into so it's a golf simulator, but it's 3 projectors.
Oh my gosh.
It's like a surround golf simulator. It's really, really cool. And you can play up to 90 different sports, and there's all the balls. It's family friendly written all over it. Inside, we actually have one of the rooms. We took a loft and in a bedroom, and we turned it into this really cool treehouse room where there's kids games and stuff, and then they can climb up on things and go up and but it's like a treehouse. It's so cool. And the whole place screams family friendly. And that was the goal. That was the point. And that's what we marketed towards. And we know that going in because we know who is coming there and why they're coming there and what they're going to want. And these places get booked out and they crank out money. I mean, it's a cash machine, a printing press essentially for dollars, because we are speaking to the avatar. And the better that you do that, the better you niche down to the right person, the better the results you're going to get.
Awesome. Well, you hit on one of the questions I have coming up here, which is about boutique hotels.
Oh, okay.
So what are some pros and cons that people might not expect? Because I have friends who have converted motels into these boutique Airbnbs, and they're super fun with the different themed rooms and everything. But what are some pros and cons that people might not expect?
Yeah. So getting into the hotel space is a completely different animal. The operations are slightly different. I mean, for example, with short-term rentals, we go on Airbnb, VRBO, maybe booking.com, listing our property. We might have a direct booking site, but most people don't. And that's fine. You don't need it to get bookings. Airbnb does a lot of marketing for you. But hotels, they're actually the software you get on, you're on over 20 different websites. You have your own website. It's a lot more has to be a lot more professionally done and managed. There's a lot more turnover. There's, people are staying for one night, in these small rooms. So you're putting people on staff 9 times out of 10. And you're also there's just so much more activity going on at a hotel. And so that's number one. I don't think a lot of people realize that. It's not a short-term rental. It's not a single family home where you deal with one guest group and then the next one comes. It's all these people coming in at the same time. But the second thing that I've learned about hotels is they don't make as much money cash flow as a short-term rental can. So let's take an example. So I have a hotel in New Orleans. I bought for $1.5 million. Okay. It was a fixer upper. And this property, so we put about $800,000 into this property. Okay. It's a 14-room boutique hotel right outside of the French Quarter. It's a really good location. This property, although it's 1.5 million, really good location, everything, it grosses, let me start with this, it grosses $600,000 a year. Okay.
Wow.
Gross $600,000 a year. That sounds amazing for a $1.5 million deal. That sounds incredible. But here's the thing, with all the operating expenses, the staff, the management fees, the cleaning, all the fun stuff that a hotel is involved in, it nets about 60 to 70K.
Wow.
That's it. It's not a cash flow machine. And that is similar when I'm underwriting hotel deals. That's pretty comparable across all of them. But here's the thing. Banks aren't looking at net. They're looking at NOI and then the cap rate. But with the NOI and its cap rate, that hotel with our revenue at about, 650, 700, it appraised for $4 million. So I could care less about the cash flow.
Right.
It's not about the cash flow with hotels. It's about the appreciation. So if you're going into hotels, especially boutique hotels, It's not about what you're going to get at the end of the year. You're not going to get anything at the end of the year. Spoiler alert, you're going to spend it all on staff and other problems. That happen. They're going to happen. It is the name of the game. There's just way too much crap going on at a hotel. And there's just, there's a lot of maintenance and things. It's about the appreciation of what that hotel is. So the deal structure is different. When we're looking for hotels, we're looking for forced appreciation. Whereas we're looking for short-term rentals, we can't do that with a short-term rental. My property that grosses almost $400,000 a year in Kentucky, I can't go to a bank and say, well, this property makes 400K, underwrite it based off that cap rate of 400K and that NOI of 4K. They're going to look at me and be like, no, it's a single family home.
Right.
And it's not commercial property. It's like considered primary residence, a residential home. And so it's based off comparable residential homes in the area. It's worth 1.6 million now. We got some appreciation, but it's all about the cash flow with short-term rentals. It's all about the appreciation with boutique hotels.
Kenny, thank you so much for sharing that. That is such great insights to that. Because, a lot of people think, hey, I'll just go big and just buy and repurpose this motel. And so that is excellent insight to that. But for my listeners for this show, most of them are not buying boutique hotels, and they're going to start with the small properties.
Yeah.
What are some common mistakes that you see first-time short-term rental investors make?
Yeah. The biggest one is they don't know how to run the numbers. So there's three categories of running numbers I'm talking about. So number one, the easiest one is, what are your monthly mortgage payments going to be? Okay. Right. You need to talk to a lender. You need to understand the interest rates and the terms, the payment terms and the fees and points and all that they're going to charge you. Okay. That's pretty black and white. They'll tell you, you got it. You put it in a spreadsheet. The next, they screw up on the revenue. So they either overestimate based on what people are saying or they don't even look at all. And they don't understand that, hey, short-term rental revenue, there is no guarantees. Meaning that we have to buy a good deal, but we also have to operate it, which is the second biggest piece of it. So just because you buy something that can make a lot of money doesn't guarantee that it will. So how you operate and being hospitable is really important. So what I recommend, and what I don't even recommend, I just do it, is I tell investors, you need to look at a range of revenue. You need to have a good, better, best scenarios. And so when we're running short-term rental data, especially for revenue, we're like, okay, we think this property is going to make between $120,000 and $150,000 because there's no guarantees. It's never going to be exact on one number. We can't say it's going to make 150 because it won't. It's either going to make above it or below it. So we do a range. And then the third one are your monthly expenses. People miss this all the time. It's not just, I got to pay taxes and insurance. You have to pay for internet. You have to pay for the utilities. You have to pay for pest control and upkeep. When something breaks in the property, for example, a washer. I had this happen to me last year in the summertime, middle of summertime, peak season, my New York property. This is the one that nets 80K. I've got a guest coming in the same day, the guest checking out says, hey, your washing machine doesn't work. I'm like, crap. Handyman goes out there, has to go out there like that. He goes, yep, it's broken. Pick up the phone, call Home Depot, and they're like, well, it's going to take about a week to washer. I said, that's not going to cut it. What's expedited shipping? $500 more. Yeah, get it done. Get it done today. It's got to be in there today before the next guest comes. Those type of expenses pop up, unfortunately, regularly. Not broken washing machines all the time, but just little things like that. And you have to react quickly. And it costs money to react quickly, unfortunately, but to do it the right way. And so there's those little expenses like that you have to account for, and that a lot of people miss on that. And so they go, oh, well, this property's making, let's say a $700,000 home is making $80,000 a year. Well, that $80,000 a year, that sounds great. But once you take out your mortgage payments and your taxes, your utilities, and those little other things in between, you're left with no money or you're negative. So that's underwriting and understanding your numbers is critical. And most rookie investors in the short-term rental space mess it up.
Huge. And I have one to even add to that. We have a cabin just outside of Boone. It's a tiny cabin. It's a little cash cow. We bought it for $125 back in 2018, actually. And
okay, there you go.
Yes, exactly. And the well went dry one season. And another thing to consider for the listeners is your insurance, because the insurance coverage we had did not pay for missed income. So that's a really important one. We don't need to give any shout outs to any specific ones, unless you want to. Do you have anyone that you like, or an insurance for short-term rental?
insurance? So there's different levels of insurance in the short-term rental space. So for example, if you want like the gold standard, the best of the best, they're going to cover you for everything and give you money if like for, we had Hurricane Helene come through and wipe out our not wipe it out, but shut everything down, and we had to cancel bookings. And so we had loss of income. That's proper. It will actually give you money for loss of
That's
income if something
exactly who I was
happens.
talking about. That's who we switched to, because we lost 11 months because we were not,
Oh,
you know how Western North Carolina is. They don't like their out of towners. I love Western North Carolina. I love supporting them. But we kept getting pushed back and pushed back to get someone out there to just get the permit to drill the well deeper. So later we ended up switching to proper. But anyway, so
that's crazy. Your well went dry out there. I feel like where my parents live, like you just accidentally dig and water just goes
it was
shoots up.
there was a drought, like a severe drought. So a lot of wells went dry in this area.
Okay.
So, yeah. And we're up a mountain. So you got to
Yeah.
really dig deep. But anyway, I digress. But thank you for sharing that and nugget for the listeners there. But
There's
I,
proper and I'll
go
say
ahead.
too, and just to add this, in actually some of the vacation markets, I will look for local companies because they're a little bit cheaper, but they also know the market and they're willing to give you comparable terms as maybe a proper or someone else because they're familiar with things. So for example, in like beach markets that have golf cart communities, they're very, very like a local insurer is going to give you better terms than some national brand where you're like, hey, I'm going to put a golf cart and let guests drunkenly drive it around. And the local guy is like, oh, everybody does that here. You're good. And the national ones are like, no, you can't do that. And so, or it's going to cost about, $10,000 more a year. So, anyway, it's just little things like that. But so I use a mixed bag, but proper is the gold standard for sure.
Well, I want to get into a little bit more of STR Insights, but before I have some random questions because I was looking through some of your podcasts. You have a great podcast, by the way, and we. I want to know, how important are reviews?
Oh, reviews. I mean, we live and die by reviews in the short-term rental space. It can unfortunately control your emotional mood. So like you get a 4 star, it's the end of the world. And I mean, the data shows that the better reviews you get, the higher revenue you make because of the ranking
Yep.
algorithms. And so reviews are everything. That's why I tell people all the time, we are in a hospitality industry.
Yep.
It's not just about real estate investing. That's very important. You need to make a good deal, a good buy first, but you also need to be hospitable and you need to set yourself up for success by having the right teams like cleaners and handyman and so on. And so, being proactive instead of reactive really, really pays off. And buying properties that, and this podcast, I know which podcast you're talking about. In that episode, I actually talk about buying properties and not deferring any maintenance, like getting it all done and updated. And if you can't afford to do that, don't buy those types of properties because guests, when they show up, they want to stay in places that are nicer than where they live. And so
Yes.
if you have a crap hole, you're going to get killed in your reviews.
Oh
Set
my
yourself
goodness.
up for success by buying right from the beginning.
I just had a student say, "Hey, I have this mobile home and I'm thinking about short-term renting it." I'm like, "Please don't."
Yeah,
No, no one's going to
yeah.
want to step down. So,
Yeah,
uh,
well, it's this mentality from, in YouTube where I say YouTube, but social media, wherever, online, where you have all these gurus, people, and I'm gonna throw myself under the bus on this one. People like me who bought in 20, before COVID or maybe at COVID, and they made a killing on these properties. For example, the duplex I bought in Buffalo, I sold it because it no longer made sense as a short-term rental.
right.
One of them I kept as a long-term rental. The other one I sold because it appreciated, and I was like, it's time to go. But the reality was like it was not in the perfect location, and it just wasn't. It's a duplex. It wasn't a good short-term rental. And that's today we're at a place where you have to buy good short-term rentals. And you can't take a trailer and expect that to just make money. You can't take your grandma's house and throw it up on Airbnb and hope it makes money. You got to be very strategic on what you buy and what you put into that property.
Thank you for saying that. And I try to avoid neighborhoods because you have to also think of your surroundings. You have neighbors on either side. I have a short-term rental across the street. They're fine. But, there's people coming in and out at all hours of the night, strangers. It doesn't bother me, but it could bother others. So I do think that's important as well.
It does bother others, your neighbors. Here's one thing I do. Every single property I go and buy, I go and I knock on the door of my neighbors before I buy the property. I say, hey, my name's Kenny. I frame it a little different. I'm not saying I'm an out of state investor and I'm looking to make money on your neighborhood. Yeah, that's a big no-no. But like I say, hey, my family loves this area. We're buying this as a second home because that's what it is. And we might rent it on Airbnb. Do you have any problems with that? And if they're like, yeah, I hate Airbnb, you probably shouldn't buy that house.
Right.
I mean, I do that every single time. And we usually show up with wine or a box of cigars or whatever. And it's actually, we've made some really good friends. We've employed some of our neighbors on some of our properties. We've built some really good relationships, and they've gotten us out of some binds too. It's like, hey, there's a problem, call me instead of calling the police first. Maybe I can handle it. And we've had some issues. Like they're very rare, but I've had like one or two issues where the neighbors called me and I'm like, hey, can you do this for me? And they take care of it. And it's amazing. Just that relationship and the payoff, and people are afraid to do that. And I'm like, go do that before you buy a house, So
Absolutely. I was just telling you about that quad on Glenwood Avenue, and I went to all the neighbors. I said, this is what's going on. And they said, oh, we think it's fantastic. By the way, I need to rent a couple of those rooms for Thanksgiving because I don't want my mother-in-law staying at our house. So that works out perfectly. And one last question here, because I feel like I need to have you on another episode because I have so many more things, like just even with setting up we could do a whole episode of like the no-nos when you're setting up Airbnbs and
there's a whole list. So, yeah.
I may beg you to come back, or maybe I'll bring my microphone to the bar when we have drinks later. But the last question I have before we get into the STR Insights is, Airbnb just had a increase in rates for hosts that are on multiple platforms. Yep. So what are your thoughts on that? I diversify my portfolio, and I'm only down to 2 short-term rentals right now, but I've been in the game long enough. I've only been on Airbnb, so it did not affect me. I'm still just getting 3% taken out. But what are your thoughts on that? Is it better to be on multiple platforms? Should you stick to one? Take it away.
So it ultimately comes down to the type of property you have. What I mean by that is the properties that are more unique, they're more niche down, they did everything I talked about earlier. It doesn't matter. Any pricing changes Airbnb does, any weird rules and policies they put in place, those properties will always be booked first. The fact of the matter is, people demand is still actually increasing in the Airbnb space. It's not going away. But what's increasing faster than the demand or outpacing the demand is the supply. Okay, so it's a competition problem, not a demand problem.
Yes.
So if your property is a top dog in a market because it has cool amenities, best location, design, all this great stuff, I call it's called pricing elasticity. It doesn't matter. You're still going to get booked. You're still going to make money. But the properties who are average, they're the ones who are going to fill it the most. They're the ones that are going to need to be on other platforms. They're going to need to really market. They're going to really need to put in and I still encourage people to do all those things anyway. Like, we have a brand and we build a website and all this great stuff, but we get booked on Airbnb, VRBO, booking.com, and we don't have to push the direct booking site. Now we might in the future just to kind of like grow that side of it. But the reality is, like, we don't have to, because those properties are so well positioned to be at the top of the market. And that's where I think that all these changes, there are always going to be changes and things that happen. At the end of the day, if you've bought correctly and you're operating correctly, it doesn't matter.
Good. Great answer, Kenny. Thank you for that. All right. Let's break down STR Insights, because I also know that you coach. You've helped over 300 people successfully grow their short-term rental businesses. So how does STR Insights work in here? What all does that offer, that website? And I know you said it was free, but I'm sure there's a paid version
Yeah,
somewhere.
yeah. So we have a free like data platform that
Okay.
you can get data from, and it's kind of just an entry point for folks. But really, what I do is consulting. So I help people find deals. People hire me usually, at the beginning of the bio, high income earners. People don't have a lot of time. They're like, "Hey, Kenny, you know what? I could go listen to all like I don't even know how many episodes, 150 episodes of your podcast, or like." The 40 hours on YouTube videos, but I don't have time to do that, to learn the ins and outs of how to do this without screwing up. Can you just do it for me? And so we created something called, or we got creative with the name. Get ready for it. It's called Property Finder. Done for you. I call it 95% done for you. The 5% I don't do is I can't buy the property for people, but we'll literally help people find, acquire, even set up and launch their short-term rentals the right way. Imagine just, me pulling up in the driveway with the keys to Ferrari. Get in, go have fun. There it is. And then we provide them support for a year after as well, because people tend to, new people like to wreck new things. And so we try to keep them, hey, don't wreck it. Here's how to do it the right way. And we set them up for success. So that is our program in a nutshell.
I love that. And there's such a need for it because this is such a great industry. My why of why I got into this is I want to provide memories for people. And that is truly, I want to provide an experience, a getaway, and that's how I choose my short-term rentals. So Kenny, this is all fantastic. Before we go to the second part of the podcast here, who is your ideal person that you can help with this? And by the way, is management involved in here, or are they self-managing? Who is your ideal avatar to, I know you said that they don't have money, but what's a good example?
Yeah. So the ideal
that they
person
do have money.
Yeah. I was like, they gotta have some money to buy and invest in the properties. So the ideal person is that person who has typically they're working 9 to 5, or they have high income. They're a physician. We'll work with a ton of physicians, attorneys, tech people, people who are wanting to invest and get into this space, just don't have the time and the know-how to without making a mistake. I tell people all the time, look, the end of the day, if you know a market you want to go into, go talk to a realtor. But the realtor is motivated by the sell of the property, their commission that they're making. And then you have all these other things of the setup, and they might have those resources, they might not. And so it's like hitting an easy button, and having somebody who's done it several times in markets all across the country, and the resources. And I mean, we've helped over 300 people. There isn't really a place I don't know about already. Or I have someone, that has a short-term rental there. So I've got the resources, the local teams, the cleaners, everything in place. The one thing I don't do is property management, because I don't think you need property management in today's age. You can even all of my doctors and physicians, they're usually like the busiest, or, they're in surgery for 8 hours, or something crazy like that. They hire virtual assistants to help with their messaging. There's companies that will do revenue management for you. So your pricing, there's software that will automate and send out messages or change door locks or do things. And then you have your cleaners and your handyman. And 9 times out of 10, these cleaning companies, they've been doing it for years. They have a process in place. So they're hooked into your calendar, and my cleaners send me a notification. The only notification they send me is, hey, the property's ready to go. That's it. And then a bill at the end of the month. But that's it. They handle everything. If something's broken, the guy goes, they actually have a maintenance guy that works on their team. And every now and then they'll reach out to me with some random question about something, and I just make a judgment call, but it's not an immediate, got to take action kind of thing. And then when there are those immediate things, you're never going to be you're not there. You can't take care of it. You got to have a good team and boots on the ground anyway. And so you don't need property management anymore. That's what I've learned. And I don't use property management. I self-manage all of my properties. And I teach people how to self-manage too. And finally, on that note, if you self-manage, you'll get way more tax benefits. So you can learn about bonus depreciation. I'm sure you've had some people talk about that before with short-term rentals, the STR loophole. But you have to self-manage with that, and you will get crazy tax savings too. So it just doesn't even make sense to lose 20% of your income to a property manager in this day and age.
I did not think I could like you anymore, Kenny. That I'm so glad you, I was like losing my mind over here as you're talking, like, shh, louder for the people in the back, because I literally spend maybe an hour. I will just check and make sure that, and everything's automated these days. Yep. And if somebody has a question or what, so thank you for that. It absolutely can be done with busy people. So Kenny, this is fantastic. Oh my goodness. But I really do want to have a very soon follow-up, because I want to get into like the no-nos when setting up Airbnbs, because I have stayed in, or I should say short-term rentals, excuse me. I have stayed in some short-term rentals where I was like, what were they thinking? Because I know you mentioned IKEA, but then stuff off Facebook Marketplace, which I think putting a bunch of used furniture there, making it look like a dorm room is just so awful. But anyway, we're going to save it for the next episode, Kenny. Shortly, I will get you on again. But we're going to move to the second part of the podcast here quickly here. And I use the acronym BADASS, which clearly you are. And I want to know, the first letter is B for book. What is a book that's made a huge difference in your life?
Yeah, that's always a tough one because there's so many good ones out there. But for short-term rentals specifically, and this is one that I've read a few times, it's called The Pumpkin Plan by Mike Michalowicz.
Oh,
so
okay.
Mike
Profit
Michalowicz,
first. Yeah.
he has a really good book too. And I don't know. So it depends on the mood I'm feeling and the books I recommend, but he wrote a book called Profit First.
Right.
And that's his, like, what his known one, but I think it's the second one is Pumpkin Plan. And it is very applicable to short-term rental. And I've heard Mike actually speak in person about this. And in Pumpkin Plan, he teaches about, how these people grow the massive competitive, like oversized pumpkins, like we saw at the NC State Fair. The one that won was like 2,400 pounds. It was the size of like a car. Like, it was just insane, this giant pumpkin. And he talks about what they do and how they do it and applies it to business principles. But the whole lesson and the whole point of it is how to niche down. And the more you niche, the more successful you are. And so he talks about that, like the farmers, the pumpkin farmers, they don't just grow a bunch of pumpkins and one just grows massively and that's it. They literally they figure out the one that's going to give them the potential to get the best results. And then they cut all the other ones out and they just nurture the one. And I've really grown from that. I learned about that about 2.5 years ago. And remember, I was talking about the guest avatar and like niching down and targeting these people and adding the right things. It freaking works.
Yes.
It's kind of like counterintuitive in our minds. We're like, well, I want to host everybody. I want to be able to like take families and these people and these people. But when we market to everyone, this is what Mike teaches. When we market to everyone, we market to no one. And so it's really about an idea of the more specific you can get, the better the results you're gonna receive. And so that's my book recommendation, The Pumpkin Plan by Mike Michalowicz. Good luck spelling that. I'm not gonna spell that for you either.
I know
his last name.
I've had
Pumpkin Plan. Just remember that.
I've had David Richter on here a couple of times, and he's done Profit First for real estate investing. So he's definitely.
That's a great one.
That's a good one.
There's Profit, then Pumpkin, then Clockwork. Clockwork's great too. That's just for general business growth and managing people. But Pumpkin Plan, 100%.
Awesome. All right. The first A in BADASS is for advice. You've given us amazing short-term rental advice today, but what is the best piece of advice you've ever received, Kenny?
I think the best piece of advice I've received is, and I'll kind of summarize it, I guess. But, someone told me, like, especially when I became an entrepreneur, I quit my W-2 and just like went full all in, it's like going back to the why. Like, don't just work to work, but like work for a purpose, and then also enjoy life too. Like, we hustle and we grind, and like I was doing some crazy, crazy hours and, just all the typical stuff that people do when they start businesses and invest in real estate as well. But at the end of the day, like, the advice I got was like, enjoy life a little bit, take some time off every now and then. Like, it's not the end of the world. You don't have to. And reading some of these books like The Pumpkin Plan and Clockwork, and there's many other books too, of like bringing people in on the bus. I call it driving the bus, like putting the right people in the right seats, right? Yep. That type of advice. It's like, if you allow those people to work and you focus on what you're good at, you'll have plenty of time to enjoy your family, friends, and life. And so that's one of the advice that I have is like, as you get into this industry, or in general, like entrepreneurship, try to prioritize, remember your priorities. Why are you doing this?
Yep.
It isn't just to work. It's not just oh, I'm trying to make money. It's like, sure, you are, but for what purpose? And
Right.
remember that purpose and enjoy that purpose.
Huge. All right. The D in badass is for drive. What drives you to be successful?
Man, that's a really good one. I think there's a couple layers to it. So number one, going back to what I just said before, like why am I doing this? Like family, setting ourselves up for, future wealth, and building that and building, like this empire. But I think it ultimately comes down part, and then another part too is, and I think this is a motivator most people don't even say, but I'm gonna say it's fear of making a mistake. Like fear of what if this happens? What if the economy shuts down? What if bad things happen and I have to rely on this or whatever? That is very real for me. I mentioned earlier, I'm very conservative. I'm thinking about different level situations. It might be because my dad, is like, I'm going to build a bunker and he's doomsday or he's been, like telling me these things. And I'm like, I'm not that crazy, but like I could see that, like the government conspiracy things. Like I'm
Yep.
like, I'm that kind of guy that's like in the middle where I'm like, I could see that being real, but I'm not really sure. So I'm not going to say anything. but, but at the end of the day, like, yeah, like things going wrong, like that kind of motivates me to like make sure that what I'm doing and how I'm doing it is successful. But number one is obviously for the family and building a life and a dream around, what we want to do and how we want to live our lives. And the more clear I am on that, the more success I have.
Huge. Oh my goodness. Kenny, I did not think I could like you anymore. All right. The second A in badass is for aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So, what is a goal you are currently working on? Can be personal, can be business, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Besides your
So
goal of coming and hanging out with me in downtown Raleigh very
yeah, there
soon.
we go. Besides that goal, I think one of the goals I have, and so one of the things that I struggle with personally is this, like in my businesses and real estate and everything, is like and came from my dad too. I'll bring up my dad a lot. I guess I need to go to a therapist or something. Just kidding. He's a great guy. It just learns my dad was a very much hands-on doer. He was a aviation mechanic, also pilot, but very much like he could fix anything, tinker on anything. He just builds things for fun, cars, motorcycles, planes, whatever. And he always taught me, he said, if you want something done right, do it yourself.
Oof.
But that doesn't work in business. If you want to grow and you want to scale, you can't have that mindset.
No.
And so one of my goals, especially like short-term goals, and we can talk long-term goals too, I don't think they're as fun, but short-term goals is to be able to turn the keys over to somebody else
Hmm.
and have a contingency. If I got hit, God forbid, if I got hit by a bus, what would happen?
Right.
I want things to continue on. I want growth and I want the businesses that we've set up to continue on without me being that critical cog in there. And a lot of times it's just getting out of other people's way. But that is a goal for me in the next year, is to have, this I have some, specifics with how I'm going to do that, but have backup contingencies where people can step in and handle things if I want to take a month off.
Yep.
If I took a month off, like my company would be screwed. I can't do that. My goal for next year is to be able to do that. Take a month off, not do anything, and my company flourish without me there.
Oh my goodness, wouldn't that be amazing? And I definitely was on that train of nobody can do it better than I can. But going back to that bus and putting the right people on the bus, the book that changed it for me was the Who Not How.
Yeah, who not? Yeah. That's always a good one. I every now and then I'll say that book to people, but yeah, it's a great one too. So yeah.
And putting, just driving that bus, I don't have to do everything. And that's been, it's tough to let go, but especially when you're old broad like me. But anyway, all right. The first S in badass is for systems. What systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
That's a great one. So as a data person, my advice is track everything.
Ooh,
Everything. Conversion, and I'm speaking from a business standpoint and real estate and all this, like track everything. If you're in real estate, track your expenses, your monthly expenses, how you're performing, if it's revenue, how that's going, your occupancy, ADR. Look at the trends over time. Be consistent with it, but track everything. Because if you're not, you have no idea how you're doing.
Yep.
So it's really important that we track all of those things. Like I have a monthly P&L I get for every single one of my properties. Obviously the hotel is another animal and it gets its own thing, but the P&L, it tells me, wow, I did better this year over last year, or I did worse. What do I need to do to improve? And instead, because I deal with a lot of people come to me, they already own properties and they're like, Kenny, I'm not making any money. And I'm like, well, how long have you not been making money? And it's like a year. They finally realized after a year when they filed their taxes, wow, I actually lost money on this property that I did. And I'm like, what? Like, come on. And you could have caught it in month one, like or month two at least. And so it's just one of those things where it's like, track everything and it'll pay off in the end. Data is huge.
Excellent advice. All right. Well, Kenny, I could talk to you all day, clearly, and even my questions.
Let's meet up and let's do it. So,
well, I have questions about eliminating your tax bill through real estate investing. I had questions about what's the future of short-term rentals, and we didn't even get to it because we were just kept going with all the strategies of finding them and starting them properly. But we can save that for the next one. But to wrap this up, the final S in badass is for success. What does success mean to Kenny Bedwell?
Yeah, I think it goes back to, I don't know, this is probably a cop-out answer, but it goes back to my goals. Yep. If I can reach my goals, to me, that's success. And success is defined differently for everyone, probably why you asked that question. But for me, it's if I can take that time, if I feel like I have that independence, I've found some level of success. And I think a lot of it comes down to gratitude as well. I want to point that out. I think all of us have a problem of like, we're always chasing the next great thing we need to accomplish. And that's fine. That's life. Especially everybody listening to this is probably an overachiever, and that's great. But at the end of the day, like, we need to take a sec, look back behind and see what we've accomplished.
I was just discussing that on a call yesterday. So funny that you said that. So Kenny, this has been such a great interview, and I cannot wait to continue this conversation. I see in your structure for your podcast, you have part 1 and part 2 for a lot of your podcasts. I am hoping I get a very soon part 2 with you because I have so many more questions for you.
Sure.
But Kenny, thank you so very much for being with us today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. It was great.
Absolutely. And that is all. Thank you for listening. We will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josey by visiting therealjenjosey.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.